Hoarding isn't the answer. What people need to understand is that we are going through unprecedented times, that it's just going to be your new pattern. It's your new normal. And a part of surviving that is to have agility, to be agile. You've got to be able to shift and not shake, right? And so you're going to have to get your mind used to being neurally plastic instead of rigid. Most people are saying to themselves, I'm going to live this way. This is the way I've always lived. And you're going to start to experience things that are going to test that. And if you want to survive what's coming, I'm not being an alarmist. A couple of months ago, I told you guys that some of you are going to there's going to be a failure of infrastructure that is of Katrina proportions. And actually Helene was worse, is what they're saying. But I said that you need to be prepared to walk out of that. And because I wasn't able to predict whether it was me, because I kept seeing what was going to occur, I didn't know whether it was me or who it was, right? I guessed the East Coast because of my pattern recognition, but I didn't know. And so I have begun to walk, and people look at me. Some people are like, yay, hey, that's the walking lady. But I have started walking with a half gallon of water, and now I'm up to 4 miles. People need to know what it's going to take for you to walk out of wherever you are carrying the water that you need. And it sounds crazy, but check TikTok, check the internet. You will see people having to come out of where they are. And these are people with money. There's no road, so they can't get in their expensive car. And they've got to put things in a backpack and put water in a backpack. And the problem is that most people don't know. That's why they hoard toilet paper and 20 billion little bottles of water. It's wild. People need to you can go on TikTok right now in the TikTok shop, get you one of those gallon size deals and a half gallon size deal. And you need to know what it feels like to walk with half gallon of water or a gallon of water. It seems absolutely insane. And I know it seemed insane when I said it. And I'm not one of those conspiracy theorist preppers. I just have decent predictive analytics. Okay. It's just this built-in thing that I can do. My mind's like a computer. And it was kind of like the strike thing. I was like, oh, here they go again, pattern. Here's what's about to occur. So I'm just telling you all, I cannot, if I know more, and when I know more, like sometimes I just have people situated around the US who have information and they just tell me, hey, it was kind of like COVID, like, hey, they're not telling everybody else, but here's what's going down. Okay, so that, anyway, let me not go too far into that. So when I have that information, I'll share it with you guys. And then you can pass around as you can. I'm not some soothsayer person, but people don't realize like how predictable things are. And so I use that in my daily life, and I'll tell you all like, hey, so I'm telling you all now, do not live a life in which you cannot get up and walk away. Do not live that life. Do not think that your health doesn't matter. Some people are existing right now who will not exist over time because they are unable to get up and walk away. So a lot of us are used to ease. Like I'm sitting in front of my house right now. It's not ease. It's not easy, but it is, I'm sitting in a state of being to where I have things that I need inside my house. Okay. You need to know, what can I put in a backpack? What am I going to need? And then where along my route, my couple of routes that I have that I've planned out, could I get more? Because there could come an event, which I'm not quite there in my prediction yet, in pulling my data together, but you might see an event to where your credit card is worth nothing. Your credit card, your dollars, and your all of that, because all those things I've started to prepare for, and I've recognized the fact that, I mean, we're sitting in a time to where $20 is like $5 already, and we're sitting in a state of stability. So what's going to happen when you're having to walk out of somewhere, you've got money, you're having to stash it away? I told you guys about that thing where, I will have fake money on me too. And like, what are you going to do? Because I've watched people over time talk about their stories. One of the most effective things you can do, go on YouTube and watch just documentaries about people who went through things, and not you specifically, not the commenter. But I'm talking about anybody who's going to see this. You need to go look at what it took people to survive. What did they do? And you need to begin to think, just not stress yourself out, because I was raised by people, like I tell you all the time, I was raised by people who are the descendants of those who, like, within a generation, and some of them 2 generations, 2 people, their family sharecrop them after slavery. They sharecropped their way into poverty. And then they existed in that poverty for quite some time before they even barely had begun to try to fight for something above that, like normalcy, and sufficiency. And so a lot of stuff has been passed down to me, that's just surviving on little or nothing, you know. What do you do with just beans? You put your lentils and your water, and whether or not you got fire, you still got food, because you can sprout those I mean, just stuff like that people don't know. That's why I have to admit, last week, when people started hoarding, it really angered me, because I suffer from a bit of blindness. I actually believe, I don't know why this magical thinking is set into my brain over time. I believe that people actually know basic things about how to survive the way I was taught. And not, it doesn't have to be the way I was taught, but just like basic. And people do not. So people need to prepare for that. People need to see the shock tests that are going on, and then they need to take that seriously. Because I mean, I'm going to have to go invest in some weapons, because when the toilet paper goes and the water goes and the infrastructure goes and people are busy, because people who loot, those who are just trying to survive, you're trying to survive. It's like, whatever. But those people who are looting and going to turn to violence just because they can, that's going to happen. And so I've realized that I have to take it seriously. Like, some weaponry, I'm going to have to invest in other types of weaponry, and make sure that even if, hopefully over time, stuff won't be necessary. But survival and learning survival skills, like right now I'm growing trees. I have an olive tree, this tree and that tree, all that stuff. But those trees may not be something that, even though I've decided, instead of planting them in my yard, I'm going to have them as porch trees, so that I can pull them inside when the frost happen and all that. But it's also because I can get up, if I'm able to take my car somewhere, I can put them in the vehicle, load them up, and go to my second location. And then if we have to stay there, we do have some options for food that can be grown over time. So I like to keep beans and things, and oats and things that you can carry it dry, and then you can transport it and plant it. People should start trying to do those chaos crops. I'm about to do some now. I'm fighting off a possum who has decided to eat everything I put in my backyard, which is my fault. But I'm working on that. Anyway, didn't mean to make this long, but I want to encourage people, sorry to laugh about it, but people are not taking seriously the fact that infrastructure is going to fail. You need to look at what's going on with Helene and with the new storm that's showing up Wednesday, Thursday. And you need to look at what DeSantis is doing, and politicians are doing. They're playing games with y'all's lives. And there are people who have been brainwashed to be stupid enough to keep voting for that to occur. Okay? And I'm not talking about harm reduction voting, but I'm literally just talking about, I'm going to vote this way because that's the way we vote, because they have my best interest in heart, when rich people do not care about you. And that is the lesson for today. People need to internalize that. You understand it at a basic level, but you need to understand now. You need to look at what they did with the housing in the Carolinas, to where, is it West? Anyway, I'm wrong on the location, but when those levees broke and that water washed down into the lower income areas, and all those other houses that were sitting up in better placement, they got spared. And that's not for everywhere. I'll have to post the video. I apologize for giving that vague reference. But people need to understand that. So if you understand, like, I'm not rich, not in the least, not even coming close to whatever. I'm like a Paula student debt. What people have to know is, like, people like me, so we sit on the edge. And since we sit on the edge, we are going to have to be smarter, faster, more agile,